Hello and welcome to Marketing Storytime with Momo. I am Momo, so welcome. It's so good to have you here. If this is your first time stumbling on my video, welcome. However, if you're a returning viewer, two thumbs up to you. So welcome and thank you so much for stopping by. Before we go on, like I always do, take a second and pause, look below, and hit the subscribe button, okay? Hit the subscribe button so that we can go the Momo squad, okay? Let's go the Momo squad, gang, Momo squad, okay? Thank you. So, have you subscribed? Okay, it takes a second. Just hit that subscribe button. So, thank you and welcome. I'm almost at 100 subscribers, so I'm taking my little wins and I'm excited about that. So, welcome on board. And so, before we go on, like I always do, grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea, or grab your water. I'm having some water today, and let's have this chit chat. It's going to be a short one and interesting one, okay? So welcome to my channel. Really nice to have you here. So before we go on today, we're going to watch a short video, just a very short clip. We're still talking about the World Cup, right? So the World Cup just got done, and even my previous video was talking about the World Cup, right? So if you've not watched it, I will tag that video down below. Please go watch it and see what you can learn from a marketing perspective there. Today we're going to be talking about the World Cup, again. We're going to be talking about reactive marketing. And I'm sure everybody's like, oh, what is reactive marketing? It's exactly what it says, reactive. You react to something and you just react to an advert, a comment, or something that makes a company react, Now, the way you react also matters, so that's why it's reactive marketing. Some people are proactive, and there's nothing wrong with reactive marketing as long as you are reacting the appropriate way. So today, we're going to be talking about two big brands, Gillette and Levi's. You're like, okay, what about them? So let's talk about the World Cup. The World Cup has a very, very strict policy and rule that states if you're not a sponsor, they cover and your name is on the stadium that they want to use for the World Cup, they're going to cover it up. They would not, there's no and, ifs, or buts. There's no there's there's no getting away with it. That's just what they do. It's their policy and it's a standing policy and it's always been there. So what happened with Levi's and Gillette? So Levi's had a stadium, I believe it's in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken, in California. Yeah. And yes, in San Francisco Bay area. They had a stadium there called the Levi's Stadium, but they were not official sponsors of the World Cup. Now, let's move to the East Coast. San Francisco is on the West Coast, so let's move to the East Coast, where there was a stadium in Boston that Gillette owns the stadium as well. And Gillette was not an official sponsor for the World Cup. So these two brands were asked to remove their names, or to cover up their names and everything. Now, the video you're going to watch from here on, you're going to see what they both did. So Levi's covered their name with a white cloth. However,
these two brands weren't even World Cup sponsors, and they got even more attention than the ones that paid millions to be. FIFA has a rule. If your brand isn't an official sponsor, your logo gets covered up at every stadium. No exceptions. Levi's Stadium in San Francisco had to cover their own name with a white tarp. The point was for no one to notice the logo, but instead it went viral. So what did Levi's do? They changed their Instagram profile picture to the covered logo, posted a video of the stadium captioned, "Welcoming the world to the beautiful, redacted stadium," using the nobody's gonna know audio. This got them a ton of attention with $0 in sponsorship. Then Gillette had to do the exact same thing in Boston. But instead of a plain tarp, they covered their logo to look like shaving cream and obviously posted it with the caption, "At least we got to choose how we cover it." Then tagged Levi's and said they got us too. This is brand personality. Not your logo, not your colors. It's how your brand acts when something happens. Levi's personality is bold and rebellious. Gillette is clever and sharp. And because both brands knew exactly who they were, they turned a forced cover-up into one of the biggest marketing moments in the World Cup. And that's exactly the goal. Know your brand so well that even when you're being erased, you still show up louder than everybody else.
I think when people think outside the box is when you actually get the best results. So they covered it with a white cloth, redacted. Yes, that's the word, with a white cloth. And then they took a picture of that uh, covered logo with their white cloth. But put in mind, a lot of people still knew it was Levi Stadium because they said under it, under that white cloth, they could still see the Levi's logo, which goes to what part of what I'll say about branding is that your logo has to stand out. It has to be unique. Your colors, your logo, the way you write it, everything. I always say if you see a McDonald's anywhere and you see that arch, you always know it's a McDonald's. Even if they cover it, you can tell it's McDonald's. And that is what strong branding is. So if you want a strong brand, it's very important you put some thought and some effort into it. So they covered it up. But what Levi's now did next was what was amazing. They took a picture of it and then posted it on their Instagram page and said, "We're welcoming the team to the stadium." They just put that picture there. And that went viral on social media, like everybody was like, "Oh my God, that's so creative. That's so, that's so daring." Now let's move. That was on the West Coast, right? That happened in San Francisco, in California. Now let's move over to Boston, where Gillette was also asked to cover up. But what Gillette did is the smartest thing I've seen a brand do. They took their foam, not the actual foam, but they created a foam-like material and covered the stadium, the name, and said, "Well, we're welcoming the team to this stadium. At least we got to choose how we covered the name." And that also went Google Gaga online. Like everybody was like, "Oh my God, how did they do that?" So creativity is very important. And then Gillette now tagged Levi's and said, "Oh, they got you too." So everybody started talking about it. All right, we all know we're in the digital era now where everything is done online. People chat online, people tag things, people say all sorts. And this got Gillette and Levi's. They got them so much attention and people got talking about their brand. It's very important to think outside the box. I always say something, give your marketing team that space to do what they want to do. Now, what did they do? That's reactive marketing. They were told to do something to take down their name, to take down their brand. And they weren't, they were like, okay, how do we turn it into a marketing or a branding event for ourselves? How can we benefit from it? And that's what they did. That's what the marketing team did. They did a branding, they sat down, they thought about it and said, okay, we're going to use this down moment to our advantage. Please put in mind that Levi they sponsored that stadium. Gillette also sponsored that stadium. So in a certain way, they had some leverage about it. But unfortunately, policy is policy, right? FIFA has some policy and you have to adhere to that policy. And that's exactly what happened, right? So it's very important that you always consider you always put your brand into consideration. I know when I saw it, one of the things I said was that, oh my God, moving forward, I'm sure um, brands are going to sponsor when brands are going to sponsor events, they're going to not events. When brands are going to put their names on stadiums and things, they're going to have to work in, you know, things like this into their agreement, right? So reactive marketing, that's called reactive marketing, what Gillette and Levi's did. But they reacted in a positive way. Now, will FIFA be happy about it? I'm not FIFA president, so I don't know. However, it was very creative. It got them the buzz they wanted. Now, I always say something, right? They did not spend that much money, just like I talked about last week about what we discussed last week about FIFA, how what's the name of their brand did for for their sponsorship. They didn't spend a dollar. Norwegian, Norwegian Air and British Airways and got this much attention. It's the same thing here. The Levi's and Gillette group did not spend as much money for the campaign, but they still generated so much buzz. Now, a lot of people will be wondering, like, oh, wow, what are the lessons we can learn here? One of the things I will always say is that you need to have a strong brand. It's very important. Your colors matter, your your logo matters. The way you envision or you put out your brand is very crucial to your brand, right? So Levi's had a very strong brand because from what everybody said, under the white cloth, you could still tell it was Levi's. And Gillette used their foam like material to cover, their name. And those two were very creative and they created buzz. So those are some of the marketing lessons you can always learn is that have a strong brand, make sure that your name is strong, make sure that you are doing the right thing in terms of putting your information out there, and you don't let anything distract you or from your ultimate goal, right? And that's what Gillette did and that's what Levi's did. So in creating your brand, ensure that you've created a brand that is strong and would stand the test of time, which is what they've done. I really admire them. I'm going to study them more. I really wish I could meet their marketing team so that I can actually pick their brain and say, wow, how did you guys do that? Who came up with that idea? Who came up with that thought? You know, who puts things together. It's always about reactive marketing is, as long as it's done in the right way, is very good. Just make sure, like I always say, don't be offensive and don't put anything that would offend religion, culture, and politics on. And that is exactly what Levi's and Gillette did in their campaign. So just ensure that your brand is solid. If you're creating your logo, it's solid. Your brand colors are solid. There's a lot of thought process into it. You can always rebuild your brand if you feel it's not strong enough. That's what someone like me is here for. I am your marketing expert, your marketing guru. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, concerns, or you need help in moving your brand forward, okay? I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you that reactive marketing can be positive if it's done in the right way. All right? Take care until we see next time.